Right, good morning, everybody. My name is Marissa Yoder, and today we're going to be talking about English language learners. So before we jump into this PowerPoint and slideshow, I wanted to just explain what an English language learner is. An ELL student, as we call them, is someone who is learning English and that English is not their native language. It could be any language besides English, but it is not English. So English would actually be their second language. So, students sometimes speak with dialects or differences in language that are related to their culture. What is my professional opinion on how these differences impact assessment approaches in oral language? So, for for the assessment approaches, you will see a lot of similar difficulties between ELL and language, um, or between ELL and learners with a disability. So they both have trouble processing um, sounds, playing with sounds, things like that. They will eventually have trouble reading and identifying single and reading single words, which then moves on to them not being able to read fluently very well or anything like that. Dual language assessment, we do a dual language assessment. We do this because we want to know the complete picture and what they understand. We want to make sure it's not an issue. Um, we want to make sure it's basically an issue with their second language, that they're having problems learning it and that it's just a little bit difficult for them. We want to know how well they can use words in their first language, which is their native language, and their second language, which will be English. We do reading sounds, we read words, comprehension, things like that. Um, they are often assessed first in their first language and then their second language. A problem we could approach and a difference that could be a problem is they are either over-identified or under-identified for learning like for a learning disability or extra help. Um, Over-identify would obviously be, they're just jump right into something, and under-identify would be that they put it off for too long. But we will talk about that more later on in the slideshow. Um, a big thing for the assessment is that we rehearse and repetition over and over and over again. We want them to succeed. We want them to learn English. So that's a big thing that we do. We also could scaffold the learning if they're not understanding before we, move on to doing an actual learning disability. So, what interventions are available to students who are English learners if they need additional services? So the first thing we would do though before we added any is check their background knowledge. Um, we want to we want to know what they know. We want to make sure that every new concept that they learn, that it comes back into something from their background, from background knowledge. We kind of talked about this in the last slide, but repetition, rehearsal, practice. We want the best way that some of these kids know how to learn something is to repeat it and rehearse it and practice it over and over and over again. That's why some people say practice makes perfect, because it does. You have to practice something to get really good at it. We want to model. As teachers, we want to model the words. We want to model behavior and other aspects of our teaching. So model, model, model. Recheck, lots of detail. We are expert models. That's what we do. We model what we want them to learn. Um, another another service that they could have is books on tapes. Um, Listening to the words, that sometimes helps them. Seeing them on the screen, they can follow along with their finger. Peer assisted learning. So small groups of students coming together, someone who knows English very well and an English language learner. Um, it's kind of like differentiating instruction for us. Or even we could also, sorry, going back to before what I said about differentiating instruction, small groups and pairs. Two students together, that will help the ELL learner get some basically one-on-one time with a peer, with someone who can talk to them and maybe get more down on like their level. Websites. So there are lots of websites that people can use. Sorry. Springtime in Kansas, so allergies. Websites. Department of Education has a bunch of resources. Institute of Education Sciences, lots of resources. And National Institute of Children Health and Human Development. Again, lots of resources for ELL learners. And then, to me, the most important one, parent involvement. Some of these parents, they do not know how to speak English very well. They don't know how to help their kid. So having the parent come in, even for like a parent support group for ELL learners, having the parent come in and almost learn alongside their student, that would be a huge thing, because not only are they learning English too, but they're helping their child learn English. They're helping their child advance and get better at something that even they're not that good at. You can do different things though with parent involvement. You can take it amongst yourself and have them come in and help, and even teach them what you're teaching their student. Anything from even just the simple stuff, the sounds of letters, how to sound out a word, things like that. So, why are students who are culturally and linguistically diverse sometimes over or under identified in special education services? So we kind of touched on this earlier, on the first slide, but over identification, they kind of like jump into a referral. People think of language being the problem. Sorry, I just had a moment. So they kind of jump into a referral, and general education can't serve the needs of the student. So maybe there's more to what the student needs than the teacher thinks that they can do. But usually it just kind of boils down to the teacher doesn't have the right tools um, to make that identification of a disability among students who speak that different language. They could think that they would need extra help, but it's just their language. They're just trying to learn the language. So even with the assessment tools in the native language, they could be the inappropriate test or the inappropriate tools for them. As we've learned in the past, if you don't have the right tools, then your assessment results will be off and it will not be correct. Another thing that sometimes I think comes with over-identification is that the special education tends to be a dumping ground because they have the tools that the student actually needs. But it's just tools, everyday tools that even a general education teacher can get a hold of. Sometimes I just feel like that general education just kind of dumps them on somebody because they don't want to deal with it, or they feel like they have too much already and they feel overwhelmed. Under identification. I'm sorry, going back to the over identification, I just remembered something else. Once they go into um once they go into special education, they don't usually come out. So even if a student may need a little extra help and it's not it, but they need a little extra help now, especially learning English. Later on they may not need it, but they usually don't ever come out of special education. So they'll always be in special education classes and maybe not even be challenged to what they need to make sure they learn. So going back to under identification, there tends to be widespread underachievement. So high rates of retention and over identification. So your characteristics are almost always the same. Attributes learning problems to learning a new language. Um, they might reflect different cultural behaviors. And then schools often place informal policies regarding ELL, even if teachers think they need that special. So like sometimes they can't refer a student to special education for a year because they are English language learners, and I guess they want to make sure that that it's actually like the English language, like they're having problems learning the English language instead of a learning disability. But with that, they discourage referrals. So if a student would actually need it, you're putting it a year out, and that's a year that they're not. That's a year they're going to struggle and not like school. Another problem that we're seeing is that there's not very many bilingual special education teachers. So they may be better in special in a regular classroom, but again, um, it just kind of goes back to, as a teacher, if we feel like that they need to, then I feel like no matter what, we need to make sure that they get the help that they need. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. I know I was really kind of side note. I know I was really rocky in talking. Sleep deprivation with toddlers got me, but I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much.